Hello, St. Francis de Sales. I'm Lydia Serrano, and I'm the head of digital ministry. I'm having a Zoom chat today with Kristin McDonough, who is a very active parishioner. Many of you may already know her through her participation in several of our ministries. Kristin, you have a very rich history with our church. How did you first become acquainted with St. Francis de Sales?
Well, before I became an active parishioner, I knew of St. Francis de Sales because at my work as a librarian at CUNY, Baruch College, and then at New York Public Library Science, Industry, and Business Library, whenever we did programs on affordable housing, we would hear about the lot houses, the housing program that had been started decades ago by the then pastor, Father Lott. Then my former philosophy professor and now friend and now deceased, the wonderful Tom Taft, he told me, he said, come with me to a few masses. I think there's something very special there. And I did, and I was hooked. I should also add that about 20 years ago, after I had heard about lot housing, my husband and Tom actually cooked meals in the basement, what is now Frank's Cafe. They would make meals for Meals on Wheels. The history predates my being an active parishioner member for the last 5 years. I've gotten involved in a couple of ministries. I've loved my involvement with hospitality that is spearheaded by Natalia. The social justice ministry that's been headed by Pat Latona and is now being headed by Mary Braza and Cynthia Bastides has done some wonderful work. And a book club started by you and Cynthia, since I'm a former librarian.
I understand you're also involved with a nonprofit called Butterflies. I'd love to hear more about this organization and your work with them.
Well, thank you. I am currently the president of Butterflies USA, Inc. And I have to make that clear that we're a board of 15 people. We're all volunteers. And we exist solely to raise awareness of butterflies in India and to raise funds for it. I have been involved in Butterflies for the past 15 years. But the organization in India has existed for 30 years. So what do? Our founder, Rita Paniker, believed that there was a much better way to serve street and working children than to lock them up in institutions, in orphanages, in schools. So we do not run institutions. All of our programs are administered to these kids on the streets, except, of course, our culinary school. We have to have a building for that. Our aim is to make sure these children stay with their families. Now, does that sound familiar when we're talking today about families being separated? So for 30 years, what Butterflies has done is gathered these children in areas called contact points that are near markets, railway stations, bus stations, where a lot of migrant parents come in every day and work and go home at night. And we gather up these children, and someone who's a child rights advocate works with them from about 2 p.m. to 7. Everything from reviewing what went on in the school, to hearing any problems that they have, to involving them in our cooperatives. And at the end of the day, they go home. And home might be a bus depot, it might be an overfly under a bridge, it might be the pavements. The philosophy in Butterflies is that we listen to the children, and the children make the decisions. Our bank, our Children's Development Khazana, which is Persian for bank, is run by the kids. Now, of course, we have adults who go and put the deposit of the rupees into the bank, where they earn 9% interest. So when I tell people this, They say, I want to go to India. But it's the children who actually take the deposits in and put them in a ledger And they do this at the contact points, sitting on the ground on blankets. And it's the children who elect the bank manager for a rotation of 6 months. And it's the children who elect what's called the advance committee. And what is the advance committee? It's a group that hears what Lydia, for example, why she wants to take rupees out. It might be to buy a book. It might be to start a little tea stand. It might be to help her mother, who is trying to start a sewing business. And the kids actually make the decision whether Lydia can take this money out. It's the kids who are informing what happens. So we have what's called cooperatives. The children go home to their families, even if they live on the streets, but they operate in cooperatives throughout the city of Delhi at these contact points. One is a cooperative bank. The other is a sports and health cooperative where kids do yoga every day. They're also trained to be child health advocates. So what does that mean? They learn basic first aid. They are trained in dental health. So we have peer health advocates. We have peer mental health buddies. We have peer khazana or bank managers. And that's how we say that these cooperatives are child-led. The third one is a media cooperative where the kids run a radio program and the kids choose the topic. They choose who is going to be interviewed. They actually record it. And the only thing that an adult does is help them in the recording studio with the ultimate editing. This is the thing that is very unusual about butterflies. The programming is child-led under the supervision of an adult.
Do you have any success stories about the kids as they age out?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that. These are children who either through our bank or through our health cooperative or through our catering and culinary school went on after their high school to open a small tea caddy business or get a position in the Raj Hotel in Delhi or the one of the big chains, the Marriott in Mumbai. One of our children went on to become a chef on a Carnival cruise line. In terms of fighting generational poverty, the most important thing we've done is get every one of our children into local state schools. We meet the kids every day after school to work on critical thinking skills, etc. But we get them into school, and then this is our big success. We then prepare them to take the secondary school exams and get into uni. This is a big deal. So we now have 3 of our young women who are in Delhi University, which is very competitive to get into. And they are living on the street. At night, they come home and they live under a bridge, but they are taking university exams and they will end up with college degrees. That is our real success. That's I'd say the biggest success.
So as you know, we here at St. Francis de Sales are a very, in many ways, outward-focused church, and that we are driven by our social justice Catholic teachings to do works in the community. How can people help you to support butterflies?
Well, I'm going to start with how can people learn from butterflies. We've exported the model of the Child Development Bank to 8 countries. And we've exported our child health and sports cooperative that teaches kids yoga, teaches kids to be buddies, teaches kids to be child health. That's now in 8 countries. So there's no reason why we couldn't take this model and use some of it here. I was struck when we had the all-parish Zoom to hear Laura Goodall, my friend from hospitality, say that one of the things that she's worried about during COVID is what is the impact on kids who are at home in cooped up apartments with stressed parents, is there a rise in domestic abuse? Abuse, are children seeing things they shouldn't see? We have a whole program in India of gathering together homeless parents with teachers and the kids and the police and social workers, and they work out these issues of stress at home. They do role playing, they do exercise to relieve stress, because they see that if you collectively have a support system. So that's a model we could look at here. I know that with Jana's leadership, we have the Cabrini Coalition, and I know we're working with children who are undocumented and families. We do have the same program in India where we're taking the rural migrant families who come in. We just registered 122 families who were totally undocumented, and we got them during the COVID feeding program. We got them to be signed up, and they now have e-ration cards, and they're able to go and get grains. And our kids said, but that's not enough. We have to give them cooking oil, and we have to give them little Bunsen burners, because our kids noticed that these families did not have that equipment. So one of the things we can do is learn from butterflies. The other thing we can do that will cost no money is if people go to Butterflies USA on our Facebook page and our Instagram page. Now I'm going to sound like Father Phil when he walks in the aisles and says, like us on Instagram, like us on, if you would like us, you'll be helping us get the word out. At every Giving Tuesday, we do a crowdfunding campaign that anybody is welcome to give $5 to. And third, if anyone's hearing about this and they're looking for projects, we do a lot of that already at St. Francis de Sales, where we get canned food, and we get donations, and we get sanitation kits. But if someone ever wanted to do a bake sale to raise a little bit of money, that's possible too. But actually, what's wonderful is learning from butterflies and supporting us on social media. And it sounds hokey, but praying, because I think
always
there is such a value in the karma and the goodwill and the positivity that builds up when people mindfully and intentionally and spiritually pray for the good of people who are not in their immediate circle.
Well, Kristin, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and the whole parish of St. Francis de Sales. Anyone who knows you has had conversations with you about butterflies, and it's very obvious that you have dedicated a lot of your energies and spirit to this organization. It's been really interesting and enlightening to be able to delve a little deeper than we normally do over coffee and donuts in Frank's Cafe. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
When we are all back together in person, I'm sure that you would love to continue this conversation with parishioners.
Absolutely.
So if anybody sees Kristin standing in the church or downstairs, feel free.
I try to wear my butterfly button. I love the parish. I love your efforts. And I am so grateful for this opportunity to reach out to what I know is like-minded, Christ-centered, positive, hopeful people. And those are my fellow St. Francis de Sales parishioners.
And thanks to you, Kristin, and for all of our parishioners who continue to live Jesus on 96th Street and beyond.